Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Here is Chapter 3, Part 1 of Under the Feet of Jesus, pages 93 to 107. Florente of the Islands informed Gumecindo that his cousin Alejo had a sickness they called daño of the fields. This was not sunstroke or a flu, but worse. Alejo could no longer stand upright without feeling faint, his body weak from bouts of diarrhea and vomiting. He stayed behind day after day until Gumecindo didn't know what to do. He needs to be home, Perfecto advised. He pushed his bifocals up the bridge of his nose for a better look at the swerving worms surfacing from the soil imprints of his shoes. Perfecto had not seen them drop from the sky, so the maggots must have burrowed out of the very earth he stood on. Mande? Asked Gumecindo. What did you say? He needs to be home, Perfecto repeated. He slowly twisted the tip of his boot into the larvae. But he can't even move. Maybe all he needs is rest, offered Petra. She pulled a plastic lid off a green can of coffee. But we gotta get home soon, before school starts. Give it more time. The buses are already leaving. They can't wait? I don't know. The mottled afternoon clouds drifted like smoke over the crackling cooking pit, and Petra, who dropped 3 heaping spoons of ground coffee into the steaming coffee pot, then sprinkled cool water to make the grinds fall to the bottom. A breeze gently lifted the scent of garlic and wood smoke and fluttered Petra's apron strings while the twin Cookie darted up the steps of the porch. All of this made Perfecto feel a little better, and he stopped digging his boot into the soil. Did Florente say it's catchable? Asked Petra, retying her duck print apron strings into a floppy looped knot. It's not. He's seen it lots of times. Perfecto studied Gumecindo's worried face, so young it was as bare of whiskers as Ricky's. Perhaps, some time ago in another country, he must have been that young too. How old are you? Perfecto asked, because with the worms in the sky and all, he needed to know. 15. ¿Y tu primo Alejo? 16, almost. Almost, Perfecto sighed. He took a zinc bucket and turned it over. Sit here, he said, tapping it lightly, and Gumecindo obeyed. What can I tell you? I knew something was coming down, Gumecindo said. He sat and hung his head and shook it, remembering the premonition of the screams. I just knew it. I could feel it in my bones. When you feel it that deep, you should listen, Petra added. She polished an enamel cup with a dish towel. Cookie jumped off the porch and ran and tugged on Petra's duck apron, and Petra turned the twin's face inward against her belly and tried smoothing down the tangled mess of her daughter's hair. She automatically searched for the other twin, because to see one twin was to see one shoe. Perla sat cross-legged on the porch, studying the track of a red ladybug, which crawled over her wrist and around to her palm. Deja ahí, Petra yelled, but Perla prompted the metallic bug with a fingernail. Cookie ran back to the porch. Have you eaten? Perfecto asked Gumecindo, but the clouds in Gumecindo's head drifted in and out of can't wait and shrouded Perfecto's voice, and he didn't answer. Petra wrapped the towel around the arm of the coffee pot. She poured a cup and placed the pot back on the hot grate and offered coffee to Gumecindo. He took it with a pensive nod. Do they taste crunchy? Cookie asked, now holding a handful of ladybugs. Déjà Petra grabbed Cookie's wrist and shook it. The black spots on the bug's red, glossy backs split in two and leapt off. Petra knew that she could never turn her back on the children. Maybe we should bring him here, Petra said. She attempted to lift Cookie, but felt a strain on her legs. Go play, she ordered Cookie, but the twins scanned the ground for the ladybugs. You think so? Perfecto asked. Petra settled on the crate and rubbed the inside of her right knee. She would double the garlic. If we don't take care of each other, who would take care of us? Petra asked. We have to look out for our own. Perfecto felt uncomfortable discussing Alejo in his cousin's presence, but Gumecindo was lost in the dark of his coffee. He guessed that Gumecindo was already on the bus going home. He's sick, Petra, sicker than any yerba, any prayer could cure. It's not good to leave people behind. You don't understand. I feel it in my bones. You can't even stand up, Perfecto continued, punctuating the fact with a trembling wave of one big hand. He glanced at her veins, which bubbled thicker into a color of a deep bruise when she stood on her feet too long. What makes you think you can help him? What makes you think I can't? You have enough on your hands. If Arnulfo or Ricky or my hija got sick, I would want someone to take care of them. Wouldn't you? She stopped rubbing. This is different, Perfecto said, lowering his voice. How? How is this different than us? It's too much, he answered, too much. One never knows what obstacle God puts before us as a test. A test? Perfecto asked incredulously. The coffee overboiled and singed the flames. You know what I mean. You're crazy, I tell you. Petra stood up. With a corner of her apron, she wrapped the handle of the coffee pot and removed it from the fire. Perfecto shook his head repeatedly. I can't allow it. It's not in our hands. I can't allow it. He noticed a puncture in the ribbed clouds, which floated right toward him. For a moment, he felt as if the hand of God was going to reach right through the hole and pull him up to the heavens. He glanced down, and the maggots looked like white specks against the chocolate soil. His chest ached. Not now, he pleaded. Not now. What's the matter with you? I say you can't. Tell me to go to the devil, Petra replied. Tell me I'm crazy, but don't tell me that. Don't tell me I can't. Petra ambled to the crate and sat a second time and smoothed the apron on her lap and axed her arms over her chest like two planks boarding up a window. With the help of Perfecto Flores, Gumersindo carried his cousin into the bungalow and lay him on a pile of blankets, which made up a bed. After Petra propped up a pillow for him, Alejo already felt better. He'd been left alone for many days while the others went off to work, leaving him breathing in the smell of foul socks and loneliness. Excuse me. And Alejo thought if he was going to die, he did not want to die alone. His body muscles spasmed every time he moved in the slightest way, and all the ache rushed to his head as he came in and out of the deep well of days. Petra brought some rice water for his runs and scooped the back of his head up, put the cup to his lips. He could barely drink the pasty gray water, and the scent of his illness was a fog of sweat and rotting garbage. Later, he felt a cool object and opened his eyes to see Petra rubbing a hen's egg on his bare stomach, while she muttered prayers to herself. He struggled to turn his head, watch her crack the same egg in two, then pour it in a saucer, watched her study the yellow yolk, after which she placed the egg and saucer behind his head and left it there, and then he closed his eyes. In a daze of sleep and ache and loneliness, he felt Perfecto struggling to pull his pants off, saw Petra near him with buckets of water, and only realized when he felt the soothing warm water between his thighs that he had soiled himself, and they were cleaning him, and he felt too pitiful to be ashamed. He hoped Star was far away. That same day, Alejo slept contentedly for hours. When he awoke, it was dark, and the cool scent of orchard resin refreshed him, and he felt better. He listened to the sound of night crickets coming from the open window, the raspy breathing of children that he missed whenever he was away from home. Sleeping in a room full of children was different than sleeping in a room full of men. The smells and noises and dreams were different. He noticed Star's back next to him. One button on the back of her floral dress had slipped from its mouth, and he moved closer to her to feel the comfort of that unburied patch of skin. She, accustomed to the legs and arms of her brothers and sisters, pushed herself up against him to fill any crevices between their bodies that would allow the chill to enter. There was a distinct scent to her of wood smoke and sweat and soil, but also a sweetness, like Eagle's condensed milk, that he inhaled from the back of her neck. She turned, a breath coming from between her lips, her face looking as if she took her sleep seriously. A sleeping face looked so different than one awake. Her eyelashes were long and thick and black against a complexion brown like wheat bread crust, and except for the blemishes on her forehead, her skin was smooth and soft when he touched her cheek. Drowsy, she fanned her face. Alejo pulled closer to her, rested her near her, chest, and with her lulling breath against his cheek, he became convinced he would not die after all. Last Monday, Perfecto had watched Petra stop kneading the dough on the table. She looked out at the eucalyptus trees, thinking of what he did not know, and her stare made him think for a moment that the trees were whispering his secret to her. Could she know what he thought? Could she tell by the way he took to looking for extra jobs? Could she hear it in the clanking bells of the train crossing? But she broke her stare, continued kneading the white dough for the dinner tortillas. The Thursday before, he had dreamt of illness, his veins like irrigation canals, clogged with dying insects, twitching on their backs, their little twig legs jerking. The following night, he dreamt of Mercedes calling to him in the ridiculous frilly dress she was buried in. His dreams were never in color. "Perfecto, don't you remember us?" she whispered in sepia tones. Or was it his baby? It was the memories that bound his spirit to his native soil. He knew the ghosts were working in the dream world to tell him something. Yet each night that he lay next to Petra, he prayed that the spirits would keep quiet and let him enjoy the tenderness of a woman who wore an aura of garlic as brilliant as the aura circling La Virgen. What more could he have asked of the spirits? But it was too late. Too late. He was too old to support this family. And who did he think he was? And on Saturday, he dreamt of keys and the moon and that Petra was pregnant. There was no denying the insect signs that warned him. Even Petra had said it. When you feel it that deep, listen. The final sign was the young man Alejo. He could feel the boy's death under his bare feet as he carried him up the porch and into their house. It was that close. Alejo felt a mosquito buzzing and lifted his hand to swat it away. He swiped his hand to his face, his head too groggy to open his eyes. Finally, irrigated by the mosquito, he opened his eyes to see Cookie tickling his nose with a white thread. He turned his face to the window and thought he was seeing double, for he saw Perla studying the pockmarks on the stubble of cheek that felt like sandpaper when she touched it. Perfecto wiped the crusty terminal posts of the car battery with a soiled rag he kept under the driver's seat for checking the oil. He removed the vent hole caps and sniffed for the corrosive smell of sulfuric acid, then replaced the caps and slammed shut the hood of the station wagon and threw the blackened rag on the front seat. There was no doubt that the wagon needed a new battery. The acid had become so diluted with water, the smell was gone, and this made the starter skip like a spoon scraping against metal. Now it was only a matter of time. He pulled his kerchief from his back pocket and wiped away grease from between his fingers as he walked toward the bungalow. The salvaging of the barn would bring in some good money. At least he could purchase a new battery and have enough left over to leave them some. Ricky and Arnulfo collected firewood, and when they broke into sword play, he called them to quit the monkey business and carry the wood to the pit. He thought of his own children, grown now with children of their own, and wondered where they were, which side of the border they settled in, wondered how he had managed to stray so far away and for so long. The twins ran to him, grabbed a thick hand each, their hands fleshy and moist. At first, Perfecto recoiled his hands because he no longer liked the feel of the warm little knots of fingers tying into his. But they anchored a hand each anyway, clamping their grasp and laughing. They chatted together excitedly, but with different words, tried to tell him that Alejo had opened his eyes and told him to go away, just in those words, like that, go away, and they were very pleased. The twins tugged Perfecto to the porch. Petra emerged with a hint of a smile at his forgetfulness. Her two hands holding the rim of his hat again. He tried not to see her, passed her to enter the bungalow. Petra knew the capricious black lines on a map did little to reveal the hump and tear of the stitched pavement, which ascended to the morning sun and through the trees and no trees and became a swollen main street, and then a loose road once again outside the hamlets that appeared as splats on paper. They had traveled by foot in and out of the orchards until they reached the main highway, and Petra could feel the heat pulsating from the asphalt. The oil of the pavement mirrored like puddles of fresh rainwater, though it hadn't rained in months. The family stood in file on the thistle belt of road and rested. Under the strutting power lines, Estrella sat on her haunches. The floral fabric of her dress was thin from repeated washes, and the reddish-blue violets paled against the searing sunlight. She sunk her white thumbnail into the pavement and slowly sliced a sliver on the melted tar. Not far across the highway, the rickety store stood as desirous as a drink of water. "It's real hot," Estrella said. "So tell us something we don't know," Ricky replied. The rubber of his shoe stuck with thistle thorns, which were planted around the fenceless edges of the orchard to discourage roadside thievery. He carefully plucked off a few. "Should we wait?" Arnulfo asked, looking down the slithery road. It looked as flat as a crushed, dried snake. "Wait for what?" snapped Petra in a tone that was tired and therefore mean. She lay her forehead on her palm. The only relief from the reaming sun came at twilight, and twilight seemed as far away as the store. A lime-green Bermuda with a white top and white wall tires rolled off the road and under the awning of the store's single gas pump, and braked, and two people got off. "Vámonos," Petra decided. Estrella heaved Perla on her shoulders with firm instructions. "Keep your manitas out of my eyeballs, Gordita," she said, and the twin nodded like a jiggle doll on the back seat of a car. Plump legs dangled on Estrella's chest, and the twin's moist palms rested on her forehead. "Maybe we should wait," Arnulfo meekly repeated. A Ford pickup with a dented headlight rambled by and honked, and the blast frightened him. "After this one," Petra said, pointing to an Allied moving truck which whisked by with such incredible speed it forced the hems of dresses up and shirts to fly open. Estrella lifted Cookie's buttocks, and the twin clamped her legs around her waist. Petra looked both ways. A convoy of vehicles appeared from nowhere, whipping their faces with grainy wind. "After this one," Petra said again. Cookie tightened her grasp. Estrella followed the clicking of the mother's rubber sandals. The twins were heavier than usual. Her neck strained from Perla's clamped hold. Let go a little. The thistle thorns on her shoes felt like cleats as she sprinted across the asphalt in short, precise steps. "You're not going to fall." When they reached the gas pump, Estrella lowered Cookie immediately and slid Perla off her shoulders, and the sudden release of weight made her dizzy. Patches of sweat pasted her back and saturated the violets into deep purple flowers. She slipped under the tinted awning, her shadow dissolving like lard in a hot skillet. The driver of the Bermuda cocked the trigger of the dispenser, and the old gas pump began rotating clackety numbers. The vapors of the gasoline idled in the air. "Next time," Petra wagged her finger at the twins. "Next time you two will have to walk." The twins cowered behind Estrella. "Huercos fregados," she whispered. Petra crossed her arms and looked at the Bermuda's plump seats. The white plush carpeting was so white, it was obvious no one ate in the car. She envied the car, then envied the landlord of the car who could travel from one splat dot to another. She thought him a man who knew his neighbors well, who returned to the same bed, who could tell where the schools and where the stores were, and where the Nescafe coffee jars in the store were located, and payday always came at the end of the week. The gas dispenser triggered off, and Bermuda Man removed it. The boys had not crossed the highway. Ricky plucked the thorns from his shoe. The man snapped a blue paper towel from his silver box and buffed the chrome of his car. "Should I get them?" Estrella asked. "You always going to carry them on your back?" Petra was angry. Another semi-trailer roared past, and their dresses fluttered between their knees. "Ahora mismo!" Petra yelled to the boys after the truck was safely out of ear's reach. "Pronto!" and she pierced her finger in the air. But the dried snake frightened the boys. Arnulfo remembered how they had found a snake. So perfectly crushed was the snake by the tire of a huge semi, Ricky couldn't even scrape the slithered body off the pavement with a butter knife. Petra raised her voice so there'd be little doubt in their minds. Pronto, or you'll get a chanclazo. The Bermuda man looked at her over the hood of his lime green car, and the sun reflected wavy green on his face. Petra wore mismatched clothes and had chosen the clothes for their blues because blue was a cool color against the hot-tempered sun, and that was why she was dressed the way she was, and she hoped he would stop staring. The man crumpled up the blue of his towel into a ball and tossed it on the ground, and the twins watched it slowly unfold. Arnulfo and Ricky hopped across the seething, pocked pavement before the mother made good her promise. It's so hot, Ricky said. So tell us something we don't know, Estrella replied.